right, welcome back. Welcome back to Joe Sanzrea's Photos. It's Monday morning. Hope we had a good weekend. I had a very nice Father's Day weekend with my family, and thank you for your emails. Thank you for your comments wishing me a happy Father's Day as well. We're gonna continue reading the Don't Ask Forever, My Love Affair with Elvis, revised and updated by Joyce Bova. She did say that most of this was the same as the regular book, but there's a lot of additions in here. So let's just see. We're going to probably read up to the part, maybe not today, but we're going to get to the part where we stopped in the other book. And perhaps we will cross-reference both books. But I think if she says they're the same, I'd like to take her on her word for that. She seems very sweet. And you can reach out to her on Facebook, Joyce Bova. I did ask her about that, and she has no problem. She says people have been very kind. So let's go ahead and continue reading. So where we stopped off, her mother didn't know that she was going to have a twin, and it was a bit of a shock. So though they were both scheduled to arrive on Elvis's birthday, we came a month early on the 12th of December, weighing in at only 4 pounds each. Too small to be released from the hospital, we ended up being Christmas presents. Unfortunately, we were born into a very dysfunctional family. We had an agnostic father and a strict Catholic regimen forced upon us by a mother who sorrowfully suffered from a multitude of mental and emotional maladies throughout her life. In contrast, during her moments of normality, she was a vivacious, full-of-life woman with boundless energy, whose love for her twins was immeasurable. Sadly, I guess there's no such thing as a perfect mother, and I don't believe in childhood anyways, not only because of Elvis's bizarre feelings about mothers, as traumatic a decision as it was for me to terminate my pregnancy, it was the right one for me. So, she gets right away into it. I think in the other book, I don't think you even know about that until later on. So if you didn't know that Joyce Bova decided to terminate her pregnancy with Elvis, now you do. Right away. I've come to understand that motherhood was a role that I was not destined or equipped to play. Okay, so that's interesting. And you know, perhaps we'll talk to Joyce about that, but I've always heard that Joyce had chosen not to have the baby because Elvis didn't find women that were mothers attractive. But here it does say that it was the right one for me. I've come to understand that motherhood was a role I was not destined or equipped to play. As youngsters, we could not cope with the constant unrest between our parents. So Janice and I started running away from home at an early age. Unheard of in an Italian family, by 18 we'd moved out of our suburban Baltimore home in Ellicott City, Maryland, to the grandeur of our nation's capital in Washington, D.C., with the help of Janice's first love. Roger, a handsome Italian-American, actually should have been Janice's forever love, were it not for the wanderlust of our youth. This much older, wiser, and profound gentleman played a major role in both of our lives. Isn't that interesting? Roger. Same name as Anne Margaret's husband. played a role. Once again, the name Roger, a role in Elvis's life. See how much I can read today. So, in a way, he helped us raise. He helped raise us where our own father did not. For almost 6 years, he kept us grounded and safe, while introducing us to a more sophisticated lifestyle that included family invitations into the titillating Sicilian world, and one very memorable invite to an absolutely flamboyant wedding of the Magadino clan in upstate New York. Such associations might create some suspicions, but we were too young to know or care, and we were having the time of our lives. As an extra bonus, we have been able to maintain a warm friendship with Roger's lovely daughter, Denise. We did return to Baltimore for a brief period in 1964 to become Playboy bunnies. Did we know that? We didn't know that, did we? I don't think we did. A suggestion by our Baltimore police detective Sergeant Father. Although highly respected by his fellow officers and very well liked by everyone, his absence from home caused much of the strife in our household, which left two bewildered children alone and unable to cope with the tirades of our unstable mother. Janice and I became even closer than normal twins because it was an integral strategy for our survival. Thus, we were inseparable at birth, have been inseparable throughout our lives, and will be inseparable until the end. We adored our mostly absent dad, and indeed appreciated his calm and sedate demeanor that was a far cry from our mom's hot-blooded temperament. A voracious reader, Dad was a self-taught intellectual, despite only having a high school diploma. Such minds were rare in the standard Sicilian neighborhood. In stark contrast, most of our father's spare time revolved around sporting events, and he was an avid gambler. The only sport he actually participated in, though, was billiards, and he was literally a champion at that. Now, being identical twins gave us a definite edge when we interviewed at the Playboy Club. Having a cop as a father certainly had its advantages, too. It seems our dad's friendship with the owners of the posh new night spot got us right in the door. The Playboy Bunny aura was intoxicating and provocative. Our recurrent dream, though, was to visit Las Vegas, the epitome of glamour. A dream that literally came true, of course. But dancing was what we really enjoyed. It was a natural talent we inherited from our enormously gifted mother. It was a natural talent that she gave us. This alluring, raven-haired beauty started dancing when she was just a toddler. Neighbors would throw her money as she danced, twirled, and did acrobatic tricks on the streets outside of her home in Baltimore, which was called Baltimore's Little Italy. Mom eventually excelled to professional dancer extraordinaire right up until she married at the age of 27 while still in her prime. Matrimony, though, was a sacrament she was forced into by her strict Sicilian mother, who held on to the traditions of the old country. This would end our mother's promising career, which had included a Hollywood offer and also an invitation to work with the legendary Thurston the magician. Long-distance travel was just not allowed. Anybody heard of Thurston the magician? It's before my time, but I know there's a lot of y'all that would probably know who this legendary character was. Long-distance travel was not allowed. Locally, within a few neighboring states, she did garner quite a striking reputation for her jazzy toe-tap routine and her more provocative snake hips number. Now, having her career cut short was always something she resented. This, coupled with the fact that she was forced to marry a man other than the Jewish gentleman she was in love with, was tantamount to having her heart ripped out. But the dutiful daughter obeyed. That's something we don't have to deal with much in this day and time, in this day and age. Kind of that arranged, expected traditions. I'm sure it still exists in America in different sects, but not something I grew up with, not something anybody I knew grew up with. And that will make people, in a sense, unstable, and maybe not the best parents, consistently. Luckily for us, our parents had an array of friends in the business and had no problem taking us with them to glamorous clubs and shows, even as young teenagers. The atmosphere and the rhythmic beat were addictive. Like our mother, we'd loved to dance ever since we were able to stand up straight. Now, 5 years before we perfected the bunny dip as high school freshmen, we auditioned and were selected as committee members to dance daily on the Buddy Dean Show, a local TV teen dance program broadcast out of Baltimore. They don't have stuff like that anymore. Just don't have this. It's nationwide or nothing. I mean, in a sense, this did allow a lot more dreaming to come to fruition versus what it is now, which is pay to play. If you've got a high powered agent manager, they can walk you into one of these talent shows like American Idol, and you're on there with enough money, enough grease on the wheel. This was our first taste of excitement on the dance floor, unless you want to count dancing on top of the piano bar at the Playboy Club. At last, the parochial priests and nuns at our strict Catholic high school did not approve of such bizarre, brazen behavior in a visibly decadent venue. They eventually made it difficult for us to meet our obligations by finding reasons to detain us after school. We were heartbroken when we were asked to relinquish our spots for other, more reliable. Well, that's sad. We cried for days. After our bunny stint, Janice and I worked side by side at a city government job. Now, a reporter with the Baltimore News happened to visit our office. He was quite taken with the only set of twins working for the city, and wrote a flattering blurb in the column about us, noting our aspiration to become models. Thanks to the modeling reference, we were offered a free course with the prestigious Walters Modeling Academy in the heart of Baltimore City. Beauty pageants, go-go dancing, and modeling engagements quickly followed. Now, Sandra Phillips, MC, songstress, and a friend to our mother, hello mother, hello father, here I am in, what's that song? Camp Granada, mother. Let's try that again. Sandra Phillips, MC, songstress, and a friend to our mother, became our booking agent for these gigs and always promoted us as sexy but wholesome. Do a little quick check on the camera. I'll be right back. Less than 5 seconds. Just make sure. Yeah, we're still rolling. Okay. You know, I've been known to set the camera up, think I hit record, and then read for 30, 45 minutes and have nothing. Those are, it's a rare occasion, but those are some of those days where I don't load a video on the channel. All right, fortuitously, a job offer for me to work on Capitol Hill was a direct result of that news article by Jerry Adler and motivated our return to D.C. My tenure at the U.S. House of Representatives lasted 3 decades. It's a long time. Until my retirement in 1995. This was indeed a major part of my life, filled with stories that could fill yet another book. So, the original book, Don't Ask Forever, which is right here, I feel like that was released in 97. So, it was after her retirement. Let's just look here. Copyright 1994. So, maybe, I don't know why I had 1997 in my mind, but 94, 95-ish. Okay. So, coincided right around her retirement. Hope you find this interesting. It's very interesting to me. The Hill had a magnetism and a pulse of its own. At times, it could be as glamorous as any Hollywood premiere, with the occasional movie star testifying before a congressional committee for some worthy cause. And certainly, there were many world-famous dignitaries who visited those hallowed halls. It had quite a few political scandals, too. Yeah, some pretty close to home. All in all, it was a fascinating environment and a wonderful windfall for me. Elvis definitely was intrigued by the machinations of Congress and was very impressed with my work on the House Armed Services Committee Investigations Subcommittee. My dad was a cop, I worked in a political arena, and I was a twin. Elvis was into all of that. The only thing I didn't do was carry a weapon or wear a badge. That was Elvis's thing, and he did it well. Now, my job became my mainstay in Haven, while modeling and dancing filled most of Janice's and my spare time. So, when a prominent and talented local male dancer asked us to partner with him, to perform aboard luxury cruise ships, we jumped at the chance. At least my twin did. I was able to join Janice and Charles on only one amazing European cruise, but They enjoyed the onboard dancing gigs for many years. In fact, they remained dance partners for 30 years until Charles' death in an automobile accident. This would be a significant loss for my sister amid a myriad of others that would cause an emptiness in her that couldn't be filled. But we always managed to smile and be upbeat in public, another talent inherited by her mother. Fake it till you make it, right? As mentioned, I met Elvis when I was questioning my first real adult romance. My boyfriend and his business partner friend wined, dined, and introduced Janice and me to a whole new lifestyle of extravagant excess. However, the disillusionment, let me back up here. However, the disillusionment, there we go. I said it. The disillusionment I was feeling with our year-long relationship caused me to take that much-needed Vegas vacation without him. All my girlfriends and my advantage, my well-connected boyfriend, lavishly arranged our lush accommodations, meals, shows, and even first-class airfare. He promised to meet me later in the week, but as usual, his promise was not kept. Wonder who this guy was. That is where I would meet Elvis, of course. And the rest is history. Thanks, Elvis. While I was at my happiness, man, it's one of those things. I mean, when my throat is not feeling too good, my brain almost shuts off every 10, 15 seconds and doesn't communicate effectively to my throat what to say. Let's try this again. While I was at my happiest, Janice was going through one of the worst times of her young life. Due in part to my meeting Elvis, the marriage to her very handsome but very jealous husband, only in the USA a few years from Florence, Italy, would end in an emotionally traumatic but swift divorce. In looking back, it was the best resolution for Janice and probably for her husband as well. After some time, however, her ex became a very close friend to both of us. He never remarried and continues to be a significant part of our lives. Shortly after Janice's divorce, our parents divorced too. I knew then that marriage made no sense to me at all. Elvis somehow always seemed to infiltrate my life. After my magical, turned, heartbreaking love affair ended with him, I eventually made it back down to earth. Earth happened to appear in the form of a great guy who had, what else? Tennessee roots. That southern charm was familiar and comfortable for me, and he helped me stray my mind from a man who was constantly in the news, on the radio, the TV, and just about everywhere. Ralph, now a DC resident, unbelievably ended up relocating to Las Vegas for business reasons, so my visits there were somewhat painful for me. He was a godsend for a while, though, but my Elvis past became a source of aggravation for him and certainly contributed to the demise of our relationship. Everything happens for a reason, right? Y'all know I have little hot takes all the time about stuff. Nowadays, in this day and age, they say date as many people as you can before you get married. Yeah, it can work. Sometimes it causes issues. Because, there are people that are not as secure in themselves, and that includes males and females. Both men and women have a lot of insecurities. So if you date somebody that's had 20, 30, 40, 50 boyfriends, girlfriends, it causes problems. Every one of those relationships gets in the way. Now, I'm not saying that people shouldn't do it. You live your life. As they used to say, let them cook, let her cook, which means let them do what they want to do. But I mean, would have to be a trip to date somebody that was romantically involved with the premier sex symbol of the generation. Not just that, but extremely talented, extremely famous, extremely wealthy. You would have to be very secure in yourself to be able to have that relationship without questioning, do I make her as happy? You know, and once again, I feel for some of the characters in some of these books that we read, because obviously you don't have to be famous to make somebody happy. You don't have to be rich to make somebody happy. And I believe that you know, that people can find happiness, and Joyce found happiness, and that person, hopefully they weren't insecure about it. But anyways, I just think it's an interesting thing because, you know, I mean, I was a country music singer for a long time, and I had a lot of relationships. And I brought that into my relationship with my wife, in a sense, because she asked questions. And it was difficult for a while, for a decade for my wife, really, to try to get past all that, you know. And where she didn't bring hardly any relationship into this relationship. So I can't even really, I mean, I dated other people that had a lot of different relationships in the past, and I don't think I was ever bothered by any of that. But then again, I was a country music singer. I had a lot of self-esteem. I'd done a lot of things, and I had, you know, talent. And I think that if you have a level of success, maybe you've got more confidence. But somebody that goes and works a 9-to-5 job per se, and then they date somebody that was somebody very successful or very famous, just got to be difficult for this Ralph guy. I just made me think about Ralph. Poor Ralph. Right, Joyce? Anyways, I don't know. Continuing on. Nonetheless, it was inevitable that happiness and heartache would again surface. Sorry. This time, however, for Janice and me, it was almost simultaneous and in the form of two new terrific guys that we thought would be our respective Mr. Right and Mr. Right. A blind date eventually turned into a marriage proposal. Even though I swore I would never marry again, I thought somehow I was supposed to, and besides, my father highly approved. Even though I swore I would never marry, not marry again. Even though I swore I would never marry, I thought somehow I was supposed to, and besides, my father highly approved of this guy. I had some misgivings, but thought maybe he should be the one. A lot older than I was, and somewhat of a father figure, which I admit I needed. He was handsome, a hugely successful entrepreneur, and of Greek descent, which was quite simpatico with my Italian heritage. Almost at the same time, a blind date for Janice looked like he was also the one for her. An Army Lieutenant Colonel Green Beret who retired to become a legislative aide to a U.S. Senator, he was highly respected and very charismatic. Janice and I were ecstatic because our guys became good friends, and everything was perfect enough that we actually planned a double wedding. Twins, right? Of course, Elvis would factor into the equation. It turned out that my fiancé was even more uncomfortable with my long-past Elvis relationship than my previous beau. Despite the fact that I had learned to ignore anything Elvis in his presence, his unprovoked, insane jealousy and possessiveness escalated even after Elvis's passing. The situation was intolerable and forced me to walk out on him. Ironically, it happened on Elvis's birthday in 1978. Now, I eventually returned my extravagant diamond engagement ring and vowed never again. Elvis interceded once more and saved me from making a big mistake. However, this was also the end of the double wedding fantasy Janice and I dreamed of. Instead, my sister wed alone just 1 month later. As I coped with my abrupt breakup, and particularly with the painful separation from my twin, finding a dance partner definitely got me through this short hiatus. Yes, this marriage would end in divorce for Janice too, only this time in a hotly contested courtroom conflict. Judge Judy? Hotly contested courtroom. That makes me think of Judge Judy or something. Right after the I do's, the colonel military leadership shifted to the home front, and he became controlling and domineering. Oh, he was a colonel. Huh. And it seemed that my lifestyle and Elvis's history, shockingly resurrected in court, somehow crept into this marriage as well. In no small way, he blamed the ghost of Elvis for the breakup of my engagement with a man who had become his good friend. Janice was devastated by this second breakup, and particularly by the vindictiveness of his lengthy divorce battle. That's interesting. We're going to continue reading, obviously, on another day, as we continue to kind of get to know Joyce, Bova, and her sister, Janice, prior to reading the book. Kind of a different thing. Normally, something like that's at the end of a book, but I think Joyce wanted to get maybe her story and who she was out before we read the book. I think that's the point and the purpose of it. Anyhow, very sweet of Joyce to send me this book, and she sent it for me to read to y'all. Okay, so it's a present for you too. This Joe sends for Elvis photos. Hey, if you made it this far, I'm working on a documentary, and I'm probably gonna tease it here and there about Elvis, just scripting a lot of stuff, and I'm excited about it. It's gonna be quite long, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, about Elvis's life, his relationships, his friendships, and yeah. So just want to let you know that's something I'm working on the side. All right, before I lose my voice completely, TCB, TLC, this is Joe Sins for Elvis Photos.